Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens.
and Michael Reed.
What's up?
Are you eating pizza right now?
Pineapple.
Pineapple, my goodness.
Is there ever a
And
bad time to eat pizza?
Wait, that's what I'm saying. Is that a question, bro? Do you know how good pizza is at any time?
that voice that you guys hear is a familiar voice. It's Parker Hamlet from the Redskins Brawl. Thank you so much for joining us today, Parker. Again, it's always a good episode when you're on with us, brother.
What's up, man? I had Kyle and Redskins Brawl last week. Phenomenal episode. Kind of stumped him with some trivia a bit. I just want to say, Mike and other Mike, I missed you guys. Wish we could have everybody on, but you know, it's kind of a hard conundrum.
There's not enough brawls with Redskins emblems on them to go around to everybody. Is it Redskins Brawl or Brawl?
Redskins Brawl. Perfect.
Okay, I was about to say. I was like, you guys give away a free brawl at the end of the episode because I would do that.
Dude,
We are working on some merch. It's not as cool as Kyle's stuff, but we're working on some stuff. I'll send it your way.
No, yeah, same stuff. I like it. I love your guys' show, by the way. I really do.
It was
I'll make a joke about that, but
It was a great show, and I did struggle in trivia, and I'm not gonna lie to you, dude, because I was just not in the right state of mind at that point. You know, it was Friday. I had a long week.
Why weren't you in the wrong? Why?
Everything just flustering coronavirus, dude. Just all this news getting to me, just getting me out of here.
What I'm saying.
Yeah,
I kind of hit him with some hard stuff too, man. And you know,
dude,
on our episode last night we recorded, man. So people sent us some questions that I'd never even fathomed. You know, one of them was who won MVP in 1982? Redskins players.
There was a Chip Lowmiller.
Do you know who it was? 1982. Who
82? Who was it? The
82.
kicker? Wasn't it Chip Lowmiller? Was that year?
It was the kicker, Moses.
Chip. Oh yeah, that's right. I don't know why I thought. I knew it was the kicker. I just didn't know which one because that's the
I
only
would have
time
never
everyone
guessed the kicker. So,
yeah, NFL
That's
history.
probably my last guess.
I would have got it wrong, but I knew it was a kicker position, so that's counts for something.
Yeah, the Mike is the type of dude that would know what the kicker is.
I'm
in
a
1982.
I'm
human.
actually kind of impressed that he knew that.
Yeah.
I'm a human snaffle bottle. All the facts are useless, though. I don't put it to good use.
Don't
at all.
take your top off, please.
Absolutely, and honestly,
Sure.
I butchered this whole podcast from the start because I wanted to start it out by saying Mike Reed is the Juggle King. But I completely ruined that.
The Juggalos.
So much.
The Juggle King.
That was
We're having
such
a
a good
gathering of
bit.
the Juggalos. Yeah. Do you think that Juggalos abide by the legislation? Like, do you think that at the gathering of the Juggalos they stand 6 feet apart and wear face masks?
I mean, they have
They
their
seem
own
like stand-up
legislation.
people.
What rules are they going to
Yeah,
hear
they
about?
make their own. Yeah, who's gonna tell a Juggalo what to do? When he's got his juggalette under his arm, game over.
There's no
Game
rules.
over.
There's no rules at the Juggle Camp.
There's not. Just don't touch the juggle copter and give all your Fago to me.
And welcome to the Burgundy Zone, everybody. We have a great show lined up for you guys. We're going to talk about the top 5 corners of Redskins history since the 2000s. We're going to continue on with this theme, going down the depth chart, and then we're going to talk about some of the recent crazy news regarding the NFL. And then the back end of the episode, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss our thoughts on the top wide receiver tandems in the NFL today, our top 5 list there. And then we're going to end the show with a little Redskins talk and good news about the coronavirus and the coaches being able to open up for the NFL. So let's get this thing started. I'll go to you, Reed, first. Jake Fromm. What?
Oh my god, dude!
Where do you even start?
I wish I could say I was shocked, but he's a privileged white boy from down in Georgia. You know what I'm saying? Have you guys seen the show QB1 on Netflix?
Oh,
He was on
Yeah,
the first season,
there.
right? Yeah, he was on the first season, and he just rubbed me the wrong way. But it's so crazy how far Jake Fromm has fallen. For like 2 straight years, it was always in the 2020 draft. It's going to be Jake Fromm's going to come out. It's going to be him and Tua Tagovailoa and Jacob Eason and God, it's just crazy. But it's horrible. What he said. What did he say? He said that guns should only be allowed to be sold to elitist whites.
Yeah, he said he thinks the suppressors should only be a certain price so that only the elite whites can purchase them. So I don't know how you defend that. I don't know what kind of context you were saying this.
Well, he tried to defend it. He was like, oh, well, no, I don't consider myself an elite white.
I know somewhere Drew Brees is like, man,
that picture, the person though who was texting, I'm assuming it was a chick because she called him Silly Billy. I don't know if called Kyle that.
I hope so.
But she was like, what do you think? You're an elitist white? And then she was like, check out your picture, bruh. And fucking sent it to him, and it was like zoomed in with his double chin. And I was like, oh.
His girlfriend was begging him.
Yeah.
Take it down, please. You're ruining his career.
Yeah, was she really?
Yeah.
I just saw the tweets
Yeah,
or the pictures.
Yeah, no, I did see something as far as like he's in jeopardy of being cut already by the Bills. So it's like,
Yeah,
apparently he went and stood in front of the team, talked to them, and hashed it out. I don't know how you defend that.
yeah. I'm just waiting for.
Unless Richie Incognito's still in that locker room.
I'm just waiting for Buffalo to pull the plug on that for the Patriots to scoop them up. You know that's gonna happen.
No.
it's
Inside
so
job.
That's true. Belichick, he's an elite white. He can afford them.
Oh my god. Whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, what?
I don't even
Dude.
I don't know how you can defend that at all,
Yeah,
man.
because I'm kind of
Do we-
offended. Like, damn, dude, I didn't make the cut.
Right. Yeah, do we really want George Soros running around with suppressors? Like, come on now. He's already up in the potency of the marijuana.
I hope Fromm, since he's going to have a lot of downtime on his hands, I hope he's a lot more accurate with the gun than he is on the field.
Yeah, I hope he can get it a little bit further down the field too with that goddamn noodle arm he's got. He just in that show QB1, he just rubbed me wrong because he just seemed like such a tool. But then again, I guess every like star quarterback in high school is probably a douchebag because they think that they're better than everybody.
Yeah.
It's Jake Fromm.
It's Jake Fromm.
It's Jake 100%. That's the reason he's in the NFL. That's after that showing when expectations actually mattered.
Dude, I'm telling you, 2020 is hitting different, and we thought it was going to be weird with Earl Thomas. It's just, what is going on?
That's
I don't
like
know.
Third weirdest thing that's happened.
Like, what's the next thing in the NFL news going to be? Like,
right. This is almost like it's not just in the world. It's like a video game right now. Like I wonder what July's boss is going to be. What monster are we going to fight then? Yeah, super volcanoes at Yellowstone and shit.
I'm not worried about that, man.
It's coming in September. That's just. It's getting crazy out there, and I swear to God, I do feel like the world ended in 2012, and we are just in a simulation right now. Either that, or the Mayan was dyslexic, and he meant to write 2021. And
we got some breaking news.
Uh-oh.
Korean flamethrower squirrels have reached the U.S. from Korea.
Shocker! That's what it could be next.
Right.
They're gonna fight the murder hornet.
Right.
Band together.
And so let's bring this back together a little bit, and I want to go to Hall first. Hall, with the recent going on, let's not go dive too far into it, but with the recent news regarding Drew Brees, do you think this is the nail in the coffin for Brees' career? Do you think, like Shannon Sharp said, that he should retire?
Nah, I mean, he already put the apology out. Michael Thomas is already on Twitter saying that, like, I accept his apology. I guess someone was saying that he called Malcolm Jenkins yesterday, talked it out with him, probably going to keep talking it out with him. Mm-hmm. And then I obviously went to get into the facilities together. He's going to probably get all those guys together, talk to him again. So he can definitely bounce back, but I definitely think that this is his last year. And I think they were actually going to be like a contender for the Super Bowl, but I think this might actually crack from in the beginning, and I don't know.
Could you imagine the Superdome when they line up in victory formation and Drew Brees takes a knee?
Stand up!
they're gonna be like, oh, wait a minute. Remember when he said that one thing? Remember that?
They're going to bring Taysom Hill in for that one.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And Drew Brees definitely was feeling it yesterday. Everyone was piling on him. So I want to ask you, Reed, were you one of those people? Were you piling on Brees?
I mean, no, I completely understand why people were upset with him. I mean, this was the wrong time to make that to say what he said. I mean, come on, man, with everything going on. At the same time, I do also feel like the reporter kind of let him into that by literally asking him out of nowhere, how would you feel about if people started kneeling in 2020 with everything going on? Like, you're either going to sink or swim with that question, and Drew Brees sank, and he sank pretty deep.
I think that's an understatement.
Obviously, I mean, everybody is entitled to their opinion, as wrong as it may be. But I did like the apology that he put out, and I think that the only thing that you can really hope for is that the players kind of teach him and show him something that he's missing, and I think that'll happen. Drew Brees is a smart guy. Drew Brees does a lot for the community. I don't think that he meant it in that way, because if you listen to the rest of his response, he brought up about how the American flag reminds him of the civil rights movement and standing next to his brothers, and they're not at a spot that they want to be, and they're not in a good place, but they're going to get there together. And that was the rest of his quote. And everybody just focuses on the my grandfathers were in the war. And it was a lot more than that, but I definitely think either he worded it way wrong or he just has a shitty opinion, whatever it is. But he shouldn't be canceled like people are saying. He apologized.
Well, his stance was kind of strong. He said, "I will never agree with anyone disrespecting the flag."
Right. Yeah, but then after that, because that's his personal opinion. I mean, that's
just like
I wouldn't kneel either, to be honest.
Like,
I wouldn't
bring it up. It's kind of like, why are you bringing up stuff from like 4 years ago that had nothing to do with the flag in the first place?
Right. That's the thing. It's like, I personally wouldn't, but then again, I would support anybody who felt the need to. I don't give two. It doesn't affect me at all. I could care less.
Them, man. They were
like I would do whatever. Yeah, they baited the fuck out of him. As sad as it is,
and
but either way,
again,
he had a horrible response. He had a horrible response.
He'll bounce back. It's a good
guy.
Whether
you feel that way or not, this was not the time to say that.
No matter what.
Period.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, to me, I would expect more out of a future Hall of Fame quarterback.
Right.
Somebody who's never done anything, never had any controversy or anything either. Like,
yeah, I mean, this is not the
common
time
sense.
To, put a piece of cloth over human life. And I understand his stance. He's a very military-oriented person, but at the same time, this just wasn't the time.
Yeah, right now, no, you don't make that statement. And it was good to see though the NFL. Everybody did kind of come together and hated Drew Brees for one night. They were all there. That was good. That was
insane.
Dude, that really was. I mean, even Dwayne Haskins was getting attacked on Twitter because he wasn't using his stance. And I appreciate Dwayne for standing up for himself. I really do, and I think that he should have that right too. It sucks because he's trying to be a good leader by not causing a whole bunch of controversy on Twitter and social media by trying to adhere to Urban Meyer's kind of warning to him by saying, stay off social media. He's trying to do that, and people are out here egging him on. Right. And look, at me, I'm an emotional person myself, and so I know at a young age I most likely would have done the same thing, so I can't judge him for engaging. But the fact is I'm glad that he did stand up for himself. What did you think about that exchange, Parker?
I'm very glad that future Washington Redskins cornerback Jalen Ramsey corralled him and got him in check, future teammates. So it's good to see some camaraderie there. But no, I mean, like you said, I'm glad that he voiced his opinion. But I'm a lot like Dwayne myself. I don't go to social media to, voice my dismay, displeasure, any of that about, not just this, but most things, And of course, with him being an athlete, him having all that spotlight on himself, he's going to get critique. He's going to be in a scope. People are going to, analyze, rip apart everything he says, no matter what he says. I mean, listen to 106.7. I mean, they rip him apart on almost a daily basis. So, if anything, he's just giving fuel to these same media outlets that are going to rip and tear apart not only the bad things that he does, but also the good things that he will do. So, I mean, like I said, good for him for using his platform. I'm glad that he kind of had the person he had, but, it's the damned if you do, damned if you don't right now.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, obviously, he should not have engaged with all those fans on Twitter, but I did get where he's coming from. He was saying one tweet to him personally isn't going to make that big of a difference. He would rather do it in real life, and I think that's good. I think he wants to keep his social media a certain way, and I think that's if that's your prerogative. That's what you want to do it. I completely support you, and good for standing up for yourself. But at the same time, the Redskins are already getting so much shit because of Blackout Tuesday when they posted a picture and everybody was like, "Whoa, not you." You guys with that name, no. With that name, no. Come on.
That's like another damn if you don't. Because
right. If they didn't do it,
then everyone would listen for that damn.
Right.
So it's like,
and it's 100% true, Mike, because that's what happened to the Nationals. The Nationals released a statement regarding the situation, and they were clobbered, said that wasn't enough. So, I mean, it speaks to your point, Mike, that, when is enough, there is no scale to this thing, and I think that goes perfectly hand in hand with what Dwayne was saying, where I'd rather do it in person rather than online, where I can actually make an impact and I can actually bring some relief to the situation. Because, look, I don't think there's anybody out there that'll sit here and tell you that they don't think that there is some sort of an issue out there. But the hard part is finding a remedy. And that's where we're headed at. And I like Dwayne Haskins' stance on it because it's a good peek it's a good way to be right now, showing how to take care of yourself. And he didn't get too emotional. He didn't get angry. He wasn't cussing, anything like that. So a lot of credit to him because he stood up for himself like a man. I appreciate that.
He did pull a Chad Johnson too. He had a child please in there to one of those guys. He
Yeah.
said child please. I was like, damn, all right. But that's the good thing is though is that right now, I mean, obviously with the state of the U.S., this is just opening up conversations and people are having conversations, and that's the only way you're going to learn people's viewpoints. That's the only way you're going to learn, and that's the only way we're going to grow. So in a way, maybe I'm a glass half full kind of guy, but maybe that could end up being a good thing, and everybody can learn something from all of this.
Yeah.
And in the end, they didn't learn anything. That's what the narrator would say right there.
Absolutely right. And look, time will tell, but I think as a nation, we have proven that we learn from our mistakes. We're not perfect. You know, we make our mistakes. We learn from them, and we try to correct them the best that we can. And some things have taken a lot longer than others. And obviously, everyone has to do their part to make sure that process speeds up a little bit more. I don't think there's anybody out there that would argue that. That being said, let's move on to the top 5 corners that we think, the rankings of the Redskins since the 2000s. And I'll put Hall on the spot first because Hall played corner. I love Hall playing corner. Tell me your number 5, brother.
Real fast, me and Hall always almost have identical lists lately.
I know,
it's
right?
so funny.
It's so
I think a
funny.
lot of us are going to have a very similar list.
Yeah.
But my number 5 is the fast talking, slick talking, Redskins semi-great, Fred Smoot. Played for us for a while. Again, one of those guys who's on the field, never going to back down, just in your face, love a physical corner, and I just love the way he played. Got a lot of picks, a lot of turnovers for us, and still around the team to this day. Still kind of like teaching the younger guys whenever he can. So yeah, I just like Fred Smoot, and he's my number 5 guy.
Dude, Fred Smoot has the best voice for radio.
Yes, he does.
His
100%.
His personality is electric. I absolutely loved him. I hated it because I'm pretty sure a couple years ago he was he was in place to get a show on 980 or 106.7, I think, and it got squashed because some sort of personal issue, and that killed me because he deserved to be on radio. That dude is great at what he does, and I'm glad that he's getting another shot.
He also throws great boat parties.
Oh, no.
Remember that? Remember the Love Boat?
Oh, no.
The Vikings?
Was he on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he was the one who started it.
Do you know
the whole story?
Pretty sure.
Dude, it's been so long. It's been so long. All right, so hold on.
Best to leave that in the past.
Right. So Parker, let's go to you next. Who is your 5th cornerback in Redskins history? Since 2000.
20
sorry.
years.
Since 2000.
Oh, no, you're fine. So the 9th overall selection in the 2005 draft, Carlos Rogers. You know, everybody remembers the Skins had 2 first-rounders that year because of the trade that they did. You know, they actually took Jason Campbell with the second, I think it was the second pick in the first round. But, I mean, Carlos Rogers is just a gamer, man. You know, one of the main things I remember about Carlos was in 2008 when we played against Dallas. Sean Springs went down, and, you know, he was one-on-one with T.O. He absolutely shut him down, and we ended up getting the 26-24 win. You know, he actually was very successful. You know, I know we're talking about the Redskins, but he also had a very successful tenure with the 49ers.
He's better with the 49ers, right? Yeah.
A lot better with the 49ers. That's a very common trend with people.
He learned how to catch. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, he did learn how to catch. But, I mean, one thing you say about him, he was always in the place to make the play, and a deflection is better than getting burnt. I mean, look what happened with Josh Norman. So, and Josh Norman is not on my top 5 Redskins.
I'm glad to hear that,
He's
Parker.
I'm
glad to hear that. But I'm also pissed because you stole my number 5. I thought Carlos Rogers was perfect for that spot. He played really well for the Redskins. He's another one of those forgotten guys that really did well for the Redskins for a long time, and obviously he had the hands issues, but that doesn't take away from his cover ability. He was like a blanket on wide receivers, and he did really well for the Redskins, so I thought he deserved number 5 on my list. Reed, finish us off with number 5. Who do you have?
So just so you know, Hall, I was on this there with you. I had Fred Smoot as an honorable mention. Just missed. So number 5, I'm going to go with somebody who hasn't been said yet. I'm going to go with Kendall Fuller. Just because Kendall Fuller, during his first tenure with the Redskins, his final year here, he was the highest graded nickelback in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. He had the highest grade in the entire NFL. He left, ended up winning a Super Bowl. He's been the Chiefs' number 1 cornerback for the past couple of seasons. He came back here, and we're expecting some pretty big things for him. He's going to be our number 1. He's going to be our go-to corner, and he just overall, that one season of him playing fantastic, was enough for me to be like, okay, he at least stood out in some way, shape, or form that at an elite level at one point. So I'm going to go with Kendall Fuller, and hopefully by the time his tenure's done, he can be a little bit higher.
Yeah, and that's well-deserved. Absolutely well-deserved. I love that pick. I'm a Virginia Tech Hokie fan. I was ecstatic when that pick went through. It was a slam dunk, and he performed really well for the Redskins. I'm not going to argue at number 5 selection. So, Hall, let's go back to you with number 4. Start us off. Who is your 4th-ranked corner in the last 20 years?
Number 4, I got my man Sean Springs, local guy from down in Silver Spring, went to Springbrook High School. Had a pretty good career with the Seahawks before he came here. Put in some great years for us. He was, I wouldn't say like a shutdown corner, but he was like a shutdown corner for our team for a couple years of those Greg Williams defenses, back when our defense kind of was the heart and soul of the team, if you want to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And, just, again, still a guy that's around the team. Still talks to the team from time to time. Mentors the young guys. He's a mentor to Dwayne Haskins. And, my number 4 is Sean Springs, mainly because, just like Fred Smoot, he's one of those guys that's still around the team and still a beloved Redskins with the fans.
Yeah, and he's a phenomenal personality as well. I love listening to his interviews. He's very well-spoken, very smart guy, and he performed really well for the Redskins. That was a great selection there. So, Parker, have us up next. What do you have at number 4?
Well, you heard me when he said it. He stole my number 4, so I guess that's karma. Sean Springs, really a guy that I feel like he could have reached his true potential if it wasn't for nagging injuries. Mm-hmm. Wasn't originally a Redskin. Came over via free agency. Led the team in sacks and interceptions in his first year with the team. But just the history of injuries, man, never quite clicked. But when he was on the field, man, he was locked down. Always a guy you could depend on. Kind of went down with some injuries. Like I said, just injuries. Like I was just talking about Carlos Rogers, the previous entry. But like I said, whenever Sean was on the field, he's an absolute playmaker. Kind of wish everything would have panned out, and I wish he could have really reached, his true potential in DC. But you definitely saw flashes.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm not going to fault you for that because I do have Sean Springs on my list, but it's at number 3. But I can't get ahead of myself because at number 4, I have Will Blackman. He was a soldier.
Okay.
He was a soldier for this secondary for many years. They asked him to play multiple positions, and he did it. And I know he was picked on by Redskins fans for a little bit. But, look, Will Blackman, I think, deserves a spot on this list. Look, judge me all you want, Reed. Will Blackman is the man. I don't care what anyone says. Will Blackman performed well. I think he deserves a spot on the list.
Kyle likes his toast burnt.
Great on the radio, great on FS1.
Yeah, he's very, 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 very good. My number 4 is Kevin Barnes. I'm just kidding. No. I'm going to go with Carlos Rogers. Carlos Rogers, he was a very, very good cornerback for us. He didn't have the interception numbers. That was always a stigma with him when he was here, was that he couldn't catch. He didn't put up interceptions. As soon as he goes to San Fran, we talked about it before, Kyle, about people we wish would have stayed. He gets 6 picks his first year in San Francisco, makes a Pro Bowl. But he was very solid, always good, very underrated. Yeah, he had the LASIK surgery. And he's my number 4. Yeah, and then I'm just going to say, Kyle, just like you, I have Sean Springs at number 3.
Yeah, and look, I know that we don't have to keep beating a dead horse here, but it looks like Hall and Parker are one jump ahead of us here. So I'll go to Hall with their number 3. Who do you have listed?
I got another guy that's around the team still, mentor to the young guys, my man D. Hall. Put in a lot of years with the Redskins. One of the great Redskins cornerbacks, I would say, overall. When he was done with cornerback, then moving back to safety, he still was doing his thing there. And like I said, a mentor to the young guys, and I was hoping that he was going to get some type of coaching job with the team, like cornerback or something like that, cornerbacks coach. But definitely D. Hall. I'm not going to say a legendary Redskins corner, but definitely a top-tier Redskins corner in Redskins history.
Yeah, and look, I'm a Virginia Tech fan. I loved it when D. Hall came here. I know that he was kind of picked on later on by fans in his career because, dude, I was getting in fights with Hizzer all the time because Hizzer hated D. Hall. And he hated D. Hall for one simple reason, and that's because one time when he was at Subway, D. Hall drove his car up into the handicap spot, parked it, got out, and then went in front of everyone in line and got his sandwich first. That's why Hizzer hated D. Hall.
Do you blame him? Do you blame him? I would use my celebrity to do that.
I don't blame him at all. I'd do the same thing. But I love that pick there at number 3 for you, Hall. Parker, do you agree with him?
I don't. I'm actually going to go to a guy at number 3 that we were just discussing earlier, Fred Smoot. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, man. I could have made this list. The corners that I've liked the most since 2000 are really the guys that I thought have been the most. This is more so the list of the people that I thought have been the most efficient since the 2000s. So, when Fred Smoot was, across from Champ Bailey, man, I mean, he was just locked down, man. And, like we said, he had a lot of trouble off the field, but, like with Springs before, just all the potential in the world, just never really quite met it. But, Smoot has made a legacy for himself in D.C. He's absolutely phenomenal with what he's doing now. He's someone I actually kind of look up to in a sense in that regard. So Fred Smoot's my number 3.
Yeah, it's a great one because Fred Smoot was one heck of a player as well. I absolutely love listening to him on the radio. Now with number 3, Reed, did you already give your number 3?
Me and you have the same one. We both have Sean Springs from Silver Spring, Maryland, and Springbrook High School. A lot of springs in that guy.
A lot of springs in him. You're absolutely right. And yeah, he's there at number 3. So at number 2. I guess I'm going to have to start us off here because everyone just continues to leapfrog us. But number 2, I have D-Hall. Yeah, I have D-Hall there, and as a Hokie, I know he was a joke at the end of his kind of career to some fans, but look, he performed well for this team, and he was the only corner on this team for many years, and he held down the fort. You have to think about the London Fletcher years. He was here with London trying to hold together that defense, and like Hall said, he's continued to stay around and mentor the young guys and try to help as much as you can, but also not getting Trent Williams' news right, apparently. But luckily, that's not based on this ranking. So, Reed.
He did that,
Reed,
my number 2, my number 2 is also D'Angelo Hall. Just his longevity, it felt like D Hall was here forever. He was never a true lockdown corner, but he was a big play corner. Remember that game against the Bears? Everybody remembers where he had 4 picks. It was incredible. And I remember being so excited when we were getting D'Angelo Hall because when he was with the Falcons, he was a first-round pick. He was making big plays.
Fastest guy in the NFL.
Every play. You just saw the highlights, right? Yeah. And then he ended up going to Oakland for the Raiders. Didn't last there. They cut him. We ended up signing him. And from that point on, he was just a starter. He was the one consistent piece in that secondary for a long time. And you gotta love D Hall, man. He's still involved with the team. He's still doing stuff with the NFL. I see him on NFL Network now. He's a very likable guy. He was a very good corner, big play guy, very inconsistent at times, but when he was on, he
does do a lot of talking. You're right.
He does. Yeah, and look,
he does do a lot of talking.
The one thing that gets forgotten about with D Hall was after the Redskins made that RG3 trade that got hit with that cap penalty by the NFL. That was because Bruce overloaded D Hall's contract because of the horrible deal that they had given him under Serrato. And so D Hall actually got them the whole cap penalty. Just a little bit of tidbit I remembered there. Now, at number 1, Hall, why don't you start? You haven't done your number 2 yet, have you?
No,
they haven't done their number 2s.
Do your
My
number 2.
2 is a Hall of Fame guy. I know he wasn't with the Redskins long because we made the trade for Clinton Portis for him, but I'm going to have Champ Bailey at number 2. He was a lockdown corner when he was here. He was the anchor of our defense. He was always talked about, if not the best, but definitely the top 2 or top 3 corners in the league while with the Redskins.
Yep.
And like you said, Hall of Fame career. Played with the Broncos, got a Super Bowl, which I was happy for because obviously I would have wanted to get it with the Redskins. But I was happy because I was one of those guys. Jamison, chill, man.
Oh, I thought you were watching porn.
Like...
Your dog's kind of got a sexy groan.
What kind of porn are you watching?
Your dog sounds kind of hot.
He does look pretty comfortable.
I blacked out.
Yeah, no. My number 2 is Hall of Famer, Champ.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, no one's going to go wrong there with Champ Bailey at number 2. He was obviously a Hall of Famer, and he did really well later on in his career. Are you going with Champ at number 2 there, Parker?
I got to ask Mike one quick question before I go into my number 2.
Oh, no.
So, with the entire legacy thing, I think the reason a lot of us didn't have Champ Bailey on number 2 on our list is mainly because he wasn't with the Redskins very long. Yeah. So because of that, I feel like a lot of us left him off of our list. Do you feel like he was with the Red? I mean, obviously you do, but do you think that matters at all? How long he was with the team? Do you think that factors in at all whatsoever? Because I mean, for example, you got Preston Smith, who just went over to the Green Bay Packers, who's coveted as one of the best, rushing linebackers in the NFL right now, and I'm sure he's going to build a great legacy over there. But people are never going to talk about his tenure in Washington, only his tenure in Green Bay. So I feel like that's very, very, similar in a sense with Champ Bailey. Do you feel like the tenure and how long it is really matters?
I feel like in some cases because, like I said, he was like top of the league at his position, so it was kind of like he was that guy for like on the team for a while. But someone like Preston Smith, who was kind of like very consistent and up and down, obviously he's going to be forgotten about as a Redskin unless they're showing him highlights of him getting beat. But yeah, I just think it depends on like I guess the ranking of the player during his tenure here. But I mean. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, and I kind of hesitated while making the list, but he just said the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Famer, and like I said, he was that lockdown guy for us when he was here. And
that was just something I was very hesitant with because if I was going off that logic, I would have thought about putting Dion on here as well.
That's why I didn't put Dion because even whenever Dion was here, he was kind of trash for us. But like legacy type of thing as opposed to.
But
yeah, for sure.
Dion didn't
exactly
do anything when he was here. Bailey was one of the best corners in the NFL here. Still.
Yeah.
With the number 2, I got D'Angelo Hall as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's a valid point.
43 career interceptions, most interceptions in the game, like we were talking about. And I think the thing about D'Angelo Hall, I mean, God rest his soul. I know DeAndre Hopkins killed him in Richmond in training camp, but God rest his soul.
That was so brutal. That was so funny.
He mutilated.
Watching that on Hard Knocks was so funny.
I mean, the thing was,
God, it was embarrassing.
Hall always bounced back, man. He was just smash mouth football. He was always right with the wide receiver in front of him. Phenomenal coverage, just a ball hawk, man. And it didn't matter, how many years of just, awful football the Redskins played. He was always a guy that would get you that turnover late in the game when you needed it. And I think he was at best very, very consistent. And I feel like he's honestly very underappreciated by Redskins fans. So he's my number 2.
Yeah, and look, that's a great selection there. I think you're absolutely right. So, Reed, let's move on to you with the number 1. Who is your best Redskins cornerback since 2000? Thinking hard about this?
What is he doing?
I'm waiting.
Now you got to go with Josh Norman.
No way. Are you going, Josh?
I'm going to go with Champ Bailey.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Champ Bailey. I know he was Hall's number 2, but in my opinion, the way that I just said it. Champ Bailey.
Yeah, no, sorry. No, you're breaking up, so you're going in and out. My bad, dude. My fault. No, I got you. I'm right there with you. I agree with you with the number 1. Just
Can you
because
guys even hear me?
Yeah, no. Your internet was just slow, so it was all chopping out. You're
Champ
good.
Bailey's my number 1.
I got it.
Well, yeah.
I think we got
Champ
it.
Bailey's.
Now he's going out. All right. So, but I have to actually agree with Mike Reed. I do think it is Champ Bailey. I think he was one of the best, obviously best corners in the NFL in history. But when he was here with the Redskins, hold on.
No, I'm gonna repeat it. Okay, all right. Just right now.
What is happening?
Is he okay?
What is happening? Yeah, I think
this happening. This happened on our episode too. I had like just problems out of nowhere.
Yeah, I saw that. That was crazy. But yeah, look, Reed, like I was saying, I agree with you. I think it is Champ Bailey, just because how he performed here, and he did well when he left as well. I thought that was a dual kind of thing there. And I think Hall does have a point with the Preston Smith thing where, he was up and down. He had his spurts. He had a lot like Kerrigan, I guess, in a way. But the fact is, like, his career in Green Bay is going to be remembered for that because he worked really hard there. I think he's well-deserved for that. And I think, with Champ is that he worked his ass off here, and he was one of the best corners in the NFL when he was here. So I thought he deserved the number 1 on the list. And I thought that it was well-deserved in my opinion. Now, Hall, who is your number 1? I need to hear this.
I'm going to contradict myself because I'm going to pick Darryl Green. Because he retired in 2002 and he was only there for 2 years.
It counts.
Such a dick.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, I'm kind of contradicting myself because that's kind of a legacy thing over like a tenure thing, as opposed to Champ is kind of like a tenure thing as opposed to like a legacy thing. But I mean, it's Darryl Green. I mean, what else I got to say?
Right.
Like, he's Mr. Redskin. He's the guy, fastest dude in the league for a long time.
Yep.
And, like I said, just one of those guys I grew up watching, wanted to play like him as a cornerback, and because I was undersized just like him. And, yeah, my number 1 is Darryl Green because he's a legend.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And so, Parker, do you agree with him?
I mean, it's a no-brainer. I know you retired in 02, but I got to go Darrell Green, man. Just one of the best athletes of all time. 4 career interceptions, 4-time Pro Bowler, 7-time All-Pro. Actually, most consecutive seasons with interception, I think it was like 18 or 19. Most games by DB. I remember I think it was like late 80s. I remember seeing that play. I know we're talking about early 2000s, but late 80s.
No, you're good now, Reed. Sorry, Parker. Keep going.
No, you're fine. You're fine. His closing speed was just insane. He caught Dorsett on the Cowboys. It was just absolutely nuts. I remember he kept the Tootsie Roll in his sock too. I still think he's faster than half the guys in the NFL right now too, man. It's just even at his age, he's just unmatched speed. Just a phenomenal athlete, not only a player, but just an athlete in general.
Yeah,
So,
you're absolutely right about that. Probably one of probably the fastest player to ever play for the Redskins, to say the least. Now, so let's move on. That was a great list, everybody. I know we do it every week, but let's move on to. I wanted to talk about the coaches of the NFL have been approved to show up to their facility on Friday. So I have to go to you, Parker, first. What do you think Ron Rivera's first thing is going to do when he gets to the facility?
Well, so I read a couple articles about this, and I feel like a lot of people are very preoccupied with the fact that it's not going to be Richmond anymore. But I think overall it's a very positive thing for the team. He's going to have all the guys in the building. I think the first thing he's going to do is what he did in All or Nothing, man, put all those guys in a room and just set the tone for this, not only just the culture, but the season as well. So I think that he's going to have everybody on the same page. I think it being in Ashburn, while it may suck for the fans, is overall good for the organization, especially when they're trying to sort of detox what has been going on in D.C. for so long. So I think the first thing he's going to come in there and do is set the tone.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I agree with you. That would make a lot of sense for him to sit down, everybody, and kind of let everyone know how the ship is going to be run. I think he obviously probably had done that with Zoom, but, in person, it means much more and clicks much more. So, Hall, what do you think? What do you think Ron Rivera is going to do the first thing he does when he gets to Redskins Park?
Same thing as you guys. Just 100% agree. He's going to set the tone. He's going to get everyone sit down in the room. He's going to look them eye to eye because, like you said, Zoom is one thing, but when you're in the room with someone, you hear the tone in his voice, kind of like the tension in the room, and when you're eye to eye, looking him eye to eye, you can see the passion in his eyes, which obviously Ron Rivera has a lot of passion.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to sit them down. He's going to set the team goals, what he expects of them, and yeah, he's going to say that he's going to talk about tradition probably, and how he kind of wants to bring back some of that tradition and some of that good 80s and 90s Redskins football. And, I think that's going to be number one. Like you said, set the tone and set the team goals.
Yeah, look, I think you're absolutely right about that because that was one thing I did pick apart from all the sound bites that we've gotten from Ron Rivera is that he says, we got to look back at what made this team great, the tradition of it, and we got to get back to normal with that. We got to get back to that, and I think that's absolutely right. Reed, you made it just in time. I want to get your opinion on this. The NFL has allowed coaches back in the building on Friday. What do you think Ron Rivera is going to do the first thing he gets in there?
So anyway, my number one's Champ Bailey. I think Champ Bailey is. No, I guess my phone just froze. It wasn't working. It just froze and I couldn't touch anything. So I had to hard restart it, and then I started having a rave. No, I love that. I love that coaches are allowed back. I think that's obviously just a good sign. I think that the first thing Rivera is going to do when he gets there is figure out a way to make Redskins Park more accessible for players. That was one thing that he always did in Carolina. Was he removed his door? He cut the wall. Didn't he already start doing that at Redskins Park? Take a wall down so that way it was open so players could just walk in whenever they want. I'm excited to meet the Riveras. His families are always very involved when they're there, and they're just gonna get right to work. I'm excited. It means that football's here. I'm not quite sure the question you asked me, but I just rolled with it.
Yeah, that was actually really good. I think you answered it perfectly. But what I'm going to sit here and say is I think the first thing he's going to do is he's going to go hit the weight room. And I think he's going to go lift, get back
Rivera?
on those professional weights. Dude, look, he's a former football player. He's been sitting at home. I know, he's probably been watching a buttload of film. What's the answer? What's the best way to incorporate yourself back with the Redskins Park than going lifting and benching and getting back into the fields of football? And I think that's what Ron Rivera, the first thing that he's going to do, because knowing Ron Rivera, most likely he's going to be there before anybody else. And so I feel like
I'm about to have a seizure. Hold on.
You're going to make me have a seizure. Now we're going to finish up this episode, everybody. We had kind of alluded to it earlier, but we're going to talk about our top wide receiver tandems in the NFL, and this was Mike Reed's idea. So I'll let Mike Reed go first. What do you think the top wide receiver tandem in the NFL is?
We're just listing one of them?
No, you can go down if you want. You want to do 5?
Okay, so should I start at number 5? Or
yeah, sure.
So I'll just start off. My number 5 wide receiver duo in the NFL is going to be at the New Orleans Saints with Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. It's good. Michael Thomas is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL, especially in terms of fantasy. Emmanuel Sanders, he's getting a little bit up there, He hasn't had a 1,000-yard season in a little bit, but he's still a very talented player, and I think that those two together with Drew Brees, assuming Drew Brees even throws them the ball, unless he's going to just throw it to Taysom Hill, I'm just kidding. Then I think that they're going to be very productive. I think that they have the potential to be even higher. Michael Thomas is just putting out of this world numbers up, and Emmanuel Sanders is perfect for that offense.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good selection by you, Reed. The Saints would make a lot of sense there at number 5.
Thank you, Kyle.
Hall, do you agree with him?
I do.
Oh, okay.
I do not agree. I think they're going to ball out. They're a little higher on my list, to say the least. But
Same.
My number 5, I think, is actually going to be, I think they're going to return to their 2 seasons form ago. It's going to be Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. I think that Sean McVay is going to get this offense back on track with the play-action fake. I think Jared Goff kind of returns back to not the form he was 2 years ago.
You can't fix that Asperger's.
But now Cooper Kupp's a great wide receiver. Robert Woods is like one of those great route runners. Always kind of open. Always kind of seem to be open, especially on those deep crossing routes and those deep in routes. But I definitely think that if not both, definitely they can. One of them will get over 1,000 yards this year. Maybe even both, like I said. So my number 5 is Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods.
Yeah, that's a really good selection because they're going to need it. And, Sean McVay is going to be able to get those guys out in space. Parker, do you agree with Hall or Reed?
They all made phenomenal points. My number 5 is very different. I have both of those entries actually a lot higher on my list. My number 5 is a tandem that I feel like is not proven in NFL. One of them is, but one of them is a rookie. I have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. I feel like CeeDee Lamb is going to come in and just do damage, man. Anybody who watched him in Oklahoma knows he's an absolute playmaker, phenomenal route runner. I'm not discrediting Michael Gallup in any sense, Randall Cobb, none of those guys, but I just think CeeDee Lamb's a game breaker. You line him across from Amari Cooper, who while is very inconsistent, I think all of us can agree is still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. I think those guys are going to do damage in the East, man, so I have them as my number 5.
Yeah, and that's a great selection by you. Now, with my number 5, this is going to surprise a lot of people. I think it's the Oakland Raiders, and I think that they're going to make a huge leap this year with the wide receiving core, adding Bryan Edwards, getting Henry Ruggs, and then getting I forget his name. Oh my, Lynn Bowden, which was a Swiss Army knife that could do multiple things. I think they did a lot to their wide receiving core, and look, they had a sustainable run game last year, and so I think that this wide receiving core is going to blow up this year and going to make some people really realize how good they are. That's why I have at number 5. So Reed, who is your Reed? We started with you. So who's your number 4?
My number 4 is going to be Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. Damn. Julio Jones is he's just unreal. He's going to finish as one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. And Calvin Ridley is a young player who is super talented. I mean, he's got it all there. Matt Ryan is a bit dorky for my liking, but I like them, and I think that they're just Julio Jones alone, no matter who he would be on there with, would be a top 10 tandem. But having Calvin Ridley, who's actually talented, pulls him all the way up into the top 5.
Yeah, and that's a great selection by you. So, Parker, do you agree with him?
100%. Julio Jones is just an absolute game breaker, freak. And I mean, you look at his numbers the last couple seasons, you'll see a lot of people say that, he's not really, I'm not going to say not still an amazing player, but a lot of people kind of try to downplay his success in Atlanta. But just him being on the field alone is just, it's an absolute game changer. And like he was just speaking of, Mike, Calvin Ridley's an amazing player as well. Also, I don't see what you expect from a Boston College graduate, Matt Ryan, but he's still a very efficient quarterback, gets the ball to these guys.
He has a very red face. His face is always red like an alcoholic.
And I'm not discrediting Calvin Ridley, but with Julio Jones' presence alone, that tandem makes top 5.
Yeah, and that's a great selection with you. So, Hall, I'll go to you. Who's your number 4?
this is going to be a little controversial, but I think by the end of the year, it'll pan out this way. My number 4 is going to be Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know that they got rid of Diggs. You could also argue that Thielen and Diggs were maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 in the league behind Goodwin and Evans and
Yep.
Michael Thomas, and throw in whoever else you want to throw in there. I guess Emmanuel Sanders, Jared Cook, whoever, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, I just think that Justin Jefferson can, if not do the same things, maybe even better than Stephon Diggs that in that offense. I know they lost Kevin Stefanski to the Browns, and that, but I think that, again, with Dalvin Cook back there, I know Mike Zimmer loves to run the ball a lot, but obviously Kirk Cousins is going to get his numbers. They just paid him a contract, so they're going to need to justify that. So I think they're going to be slinging it around a lot, and I think Thielen obviously always gets his numbers. And I think Justin Jefferson is going to come in and put up pretty good numbers as a rookie in that offense with Kirk Cousins as quarterback.
Yeah,
It's
look,
just Kirk's the only person in Minnesota who has yet to hit a target.
Ooh, I see what you did there. I see what you did
I
there.
love Kirk. I'm kidding. I'm a big Kirk guy.
no, my goodness.
Speak
But
for
look,
yourself.
Look, that was a great one, Hall. And look, there's a huge question mark there with the Minnesota Vikings. Did they replace Stephon Diggs with Justin Jefferson? I loved Justin Jefferson's film breakdown. I thought that he was like an OBJ reincarnated. So if he is, he's gonna do well for that offense. Now, my number 4, your guys aren't gonna be that surprised, but I'm gonna go with the Washington Redskins. And I'm legit. I think that they are going to be on this list. I think they deserve to be on this list with the acquisition of AGG. Having Terry McLaurin be Rookie of the Year as a wide receiver, Steven Sims at the later on in the season really broke out. I know everyone else is calling the Redskins at the bottom of this list, but every single person on the Redskins depth chart of wide receiver is a mismatch. And it's going to have a lot of weight on defenses being able to match up with AGG one-on-one, being able to watch Terry McLaurin with 2 guys watching on him. I think the Redskins deserve a spot on this list. I know I'm being a homer. I don't care. I think the wide receiving core is very underrated, and they are going to impress heavily this year. Look, Reed is just gasped for air. Dude, the rave didn't even do that to him.
I love the optimism. Shit, that'd be tight. I'd love that. My number three. It's going to be a new tandem. It's going to be, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the NFL right now, and one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. That is the Andre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald out there in Arizona. First of all, Hopkins, just the Cardinals stole him, and it's going to be fun to watch. Kyler Murray is one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch in the NFL. He throws a beautiful ball. He's so accurate. He can move. And then, Cliff Kingsbury likes to spread it out. He likes to use multiple receivers, sometimes 4 or 5 wide receivers on the field. He likes getting the ball out to his wideouts, and that's what they're going to do. There's going to be plenty of balls to go around, and Hopkins and Fitzgerald are going to catch them, not like Earl Thomas and his brother called each other. So they're going to be.
I knew something was coming.
I knew something was coming. There was a build-up. Too much of a build-up.
I didn't mean there to, but Kyle started giggling when I said there's enough balls.
He had to do it.
And I was like, all right, got to finish it off now.
Dude, you
Like,
kept
Last
saying
time I was on the episode, he did the same thing.
he kept saying balls. I was just waiting for somebody else to say something. He just kept saying it.
just like balls, dude.
Right, just love the big balls. Look, Arizona is probably going to be there at 4, probably the more realistic decision. But I was just tired of agreeing with everybody.
They're my third.
Right.
That was my number
So, but let's go to Hall. You're number 4?
No, we're on 3.
Sorry, we're on to 3 now. Sorry, the Redskins pick really got to me. So, Hall, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is going to be. I know I need to do that to my dog. Stop whining, man. Damn.
No, it's so annoying.
Yeah, no, my number 3, I think, is going to be a bounce-back year for these guys. OBJ and Jarvis Landry. I think that, again, with Kevin Stefanski coming over from Minnesota, he's used to having those 2, like, double wide receiver threats on the outside. And I know Jarvis is kind of, like, on the inside, but he can never play the outside as well. And the Jarvis and yo, chill.
Doing something.
Trying to feed me, dog.
He's like, stop cock and blocking
Gotta
me.
take
Mike."
a huge shit, probably. But
After
no,
listening
yeah, I
to
think
this
they're gonna have
list.
a bounce back. Yeah, they're gonna have a huge bounce back year. I think OBJ goes over 1,000 yards. I think Jarvis has a reminiscence of his Miami years. Not as much catches, but as far as big plays down the field. And there's so many weapons on that offense that it's kind of like one of those who you're gonna guard type of things. And look for Baker and that Browns offense led by those 2 wide receivers that have a great year.
The Browns I just do not have on this list. I know that it's all up to Baker, and I know, but Hall has been on that Cleveland wagon for a while now. Talk about that. That is a great wide receiving core.
Yeah,
Jarvis.
I arrived to the train station a year early. It's all good though. I've been waiting.
Early, just like me.
Let's be honest, though. We're talking about top 5 wide receiving tandems entering 2020 here. And I just don't know how off last year, the absolute train wreck we saw in Cleveland, how you can, and no disrespect, how you can put Jarvis and Odell there.
Blame it all on Freddie.
Well, if you got a rookie on there too, it's also based on projection of what you think could do.
Yeah.
True, very true.
Yeah.
And I definitely respect the pick. I'm just saying that I think there's just too many personalities in that locker room, man. Stefanski's a great guy. He's got his head on straight, and I think he can come in and get them on the right path. But I don't know, man. Last year was just such a can't find words.
Look, I could be 2 years too early at the Browns train station. You never know. But I got my bags packed, ready to go. So
hey, and if we come back to this, and you might have already hit the nail on the head.
I look like a messiah.
I will say, Parker, Hall is always on the front side of these things. Everyone says this about Hall. Hall is one of the best fantasy guys to go to. A lot of people pick and pry information from Hall. The dude is working. I'm telling you, he has an eye for this stuff. So yeah. I know he has an infatuation with the Browns. I don't know what it's about, but I know it's there. So
I just want to see them. Honestly, know what it is.
Putting Terry McLaurin and Redskins wide receiver core on this list.
I know. Who am I to talk crap?
That makes sense.
No, the whole Browns thing has to do with Gavin. I just want to see him in misery and pain. So
that's a great one. So Parker, let's go to you. What's your number 3? Do you agree with Hall? Obviously not.
I said earlier there's a lot of tandems that I would put a lot higher. To me, my number 3 is Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Sanders entering late in his career, but he was still the guy in Denver that you could rely on, got most of the targets. Definitely the most productive receiver out of the group. And Michael Thomas, what more can you say about him, man? Best receiver in the NFL right now, in my opinion. Gets kind of annoying on Twitter sometimes, but when he's on the field, man, he's an absolute, just like I've said this word a lot today, but game breaker. He gets separation. He's an absolute freak. He was a monster at Ohio State. I don't know if you guys watched him when he played there. He was amazing, and he really fits in well to that offense in New Orleans. And I think adding a guy like Emmanuel Sanders gives you kind of a bona fide number 2. They didn't get a lot of that with Ted Ginn. Ted Ginn's more so for the slot due to his speed, but I think Emmanuel Sanders is a very good all-around receiver, and I think he'll pair very nicely with Michael Thomas in 2020.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you, Parker. That's where I went with number 3 was the Saints. They have one of the best talented wide receivers right now. Emmanuel Sanders is a phenomenal wide receiver. He just does not get old. How many teams has he been on now? 4 or 5, and he produces on each one. So credit to him for not only getting paid, but doing well doing that. So I think the Saints at number 3 is a good pick. So Reed, do you agree with number 3?
I already said my name.
Good Lord, I am butchering this, and I'm blaming it on Mike's dog.
It's tough. It's okay.
Yeah,
I'll move on to number 2.
Yeah. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is, drumroll please, Jarvis Landry and OBJ. I'm going with them too. I'm putting them at number 2. They are. I just think if you look at it, Jarvis Landry has been one of the most unheralded. Somebody who doesn't get enough respect, even from his days in Miami. He's always played on shitty teams. But OBJ is one of the most naturally talented players in the NFL, especially at the wide receiver position. You're right. They do have terrible, terrible personality. OBJ especially. Terrible personalities just all over that Browns team. But I think Baker's going to take a big step forward. He's a competitor. I think that with Stefanski, it's going to help him out a lot. They're going to have a good run game with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And I like what they have at tight end, too, with Austin Hooper, David Njoku, and going out and drafting Sluts-his-face from South Florida, or from UCF, whichever one it is. I really just think that they're just both so talented that if Baker can click and if he can get it together, they can easily be one of the best wide receiver tandems in the NFL.
This is absolutely ridiculous.
And I do think the Browns will have a back year. Bounce back year.
Look, man, just like Drew Brees, you're entitled to your opinion, but dude, you are so wrong. So wrong.
Now, at least I didn't put Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gannon-Golden on here, Kyle.
Yeah, you're never gonna live that down.
Hey, I have to shake things up a little bit, okay? I need it. Let me do it. I gotta wake myself up a little bit. But Hall, so Parker, let's go to number 2 for you. Who do you agree with? Reed with the Browns?
I I just think it's a dumpster fire. I think Stefanski's a great guy, and I think that
We got this whole
he could turn the ship. But I got DeAndre
Solidarity.
Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald.
together.
I think DeAndre Hopkins is just his speed is unmatched. Just his route running. I could sit here and talk for 3 episodes of Burgundy Zone podcast about all the good things that DeAndre Hopkins brings to the table. And like you guys were speaking of earlier when you were talking about him, Kyler Murray gets the ball to his guys. And I think he's going to see a higher volume in catches. And, Larry Fitzgerald knows his role. He's very selfless. And, Cliff Kingsbury knows how to put people in position to succeed in the NFL. He showed that last year, even with that kind of mediocre record. But I mean, overall, I just think that DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, and Christian Kirk's another guy. I think they have an abundance of weapons, and they're going to be dangerous in the NFC West this season.
Yeah.
And Fitzgerald doesn't age.
Yeah.
Does not.
He does not age at all. You guys are absolutely right about that. Now, I have to disagree. At my number 2, I actually have the Denver Broncos. They are going to be very explosive on offense this season.
My man, you went there. I like that. I like
They're
that.
going to blow up. They really think they are. Do they deserve to be number 2? Fuck no, but they're going to be. They're going to be good.
No, I think they are the most talented wide receiving core in the NFL. Cortland Sutton last year did a lot by himself. I know they added Noah Fant in there as well. But, Reed, we've talked ad nauseum about how good we think Drew Lock is going to be this year, and a lot of that has to do with who he has on offense. And I think of that wide receiving core, they are lit with talent, and I think
wide receiving core and tight end tandem.
Yeah, they are going to explode. I think Denver does deserve, because we're projecting here, and I think that this is the way that I think this year is going to shape out. And so I think Denver is number 2 on this list for me. So let's go back to Reed for his number 1.
I think Hall, did you go?
Damn, can I get my number 2 in, man? Damn.
God, dude, I thought the one time I thought I got it.
Number 2.
Jesus.
I know, I can see you were like, yeah, my number 2. I hate to admit this, but I think my number 2 is going to be Amari and CeeDee Lamb. I think that they're going to explode this year. Obviously, like I said, Amari is he's very inconsistent, but when he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's kind of off. And I just think that with the addition of CeeDee Lamb, they're going to get a lot of one-on-one coverage between the both of them. And like you said, if you watched CeeDee Lamb in college, he's a hell of a playmaker.
Best receiver in the draft.
Yeah, did it with 3 different quarterbacks in college. Did it with Baker, Kyler, and then Jalen Hurts. So I just think that, they're going to be a deadly duo, and we got to look out for them in the East. But I think we'll be able to hold them when we play them. But overall, they're going to have a great year.
I see Kyle shaking his head, and I know it's the Redskins. I know it's the Cowboys over there, and we're talking about Dallas Cowboys players.
They're so talented.
Not to mention that Zeke with the play action.
They complement each other so well.
Yeah,
Amari Cooper's
exactly.
quick feet, and then you can put him in the slot and have Gallup and Lamb on the outside. Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
The only thing is,
It's gonna be dangerous.
But
I had a small issue with CeeDee
my
Lamb.
number 1, obviously.
Hold on. What are you doing? Hold on. But I had a small issue with CeeDee Lamb in my film breakdown. There is one small, minute difference between him and Jerry Jeudy, in my opinion. CeeDee Lamb had a lot of opportunities downfield. Now, he rounds his routes. That's something that I saw with Josh Doxson. Something that I knew that was an issue that he had to be able to correct. That's the one issue for me with CeeDee Lamb, because I think there is some sort of a way that he could not fill out there. I know he is a hell of a talent. I mean, I've never seen a guy be able to run downfield like he did, just running through tackles and scoring touchdowns from nothing. But at the same time, he did play in the Big 12, where defense does not exist, which is well documented. And
Kyle, I was not meaning to cut you off. I just had to ask you a question.
You're good.
I mean, to me, it also comes down to who's going to be on the field more.
Yeah.
Jeudy or Lamb. I mean, there's a documented history with Jeudy. I think Judy's a phenomenal athlete. I mean, there's honestly a coin toss with him and Ruggs who's the best wide receiver coming out of that school. But I mean, I definitely see what you're saying with the the film. I think Lamb definitely has some weaknesses in his game, but I think when it comes to everybody wants to come in to be that undisputed number 1 wide receiver, but I mean, Lamb fits the mold of the best possible number 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right about that, because he will be getting that coverage. But just with the Cowboys, I know we kind of projected this year that we think that, I do think that they're going to be running the ball a heck of a lot. And I just don't know with all those mouths to feed on that offense. I just don't know how many targets they're going to be able to get. But who's number 2 have we not done yet? I think it's Reed.
We've done everybody's. We've
No,
done
we're
everybody's.
number one now.
All right, we're number 1, so I'm going to start this off. I think it's going to be
No,
Tampa Bay.
I'm going to start it off. Mine's going to be Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I'm just kidding. No, I'm joking, Kyle. Go ahead. We all know who it is. We all know who it is.
It's Tampa Bay, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They have absolutely just taken the league by storm. I know that we think in fantasy they're going to project down just a little bit together, just because that season last was just ridiculous by Jameis Winston. But I still think they're going to be able to produce a heck of a lot, and I think they're the best tandem in the NFL right now. Parker, do you agree?
Yeah, it's unanimous. Like Darrell Green earlier, I think everybody's number 1 is very similar. Mike Evans, everybody hears about OBJ in that draft class, but I mean, Mike Evans has been the true constant in the NFL at that position. Just an absolute freak. Doesn't matter who you line up in front of him. I remember watching him murder Brent Grimes years ago. He's just big boys everybody, man. And Chris Godwin's really, coming to himself as a number 2 wide receiver. His stats were absolutely ridiculous last season. I have to say that my brain initially goes to is the offense. Is the philosophy of the offense going to change now they have Tom Brady at the helm? Maybe they're more run-first team. But like you guys were talking about fantasy, I think both of them are definitely going to have a down year. But when it comes to just true overall talent and projection, I don't see how you can pick another tandem other than, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, all of our lists were kind of like really thrown out there and different. So let me go to Hall. Hall, was yours different?
Yeah, my number 1 is going to be Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders.
I respect
just think that he's not going to have the same year he did last year as far as catches wise, but as far as production, over 100 catches again because he just puts up 100 catches in his sleep.
Damn, Tampa Bay didn't make your list, bro.
I know because I think he's gonna. I know because I'm gonna tell you why after I explain this.
Okay.
But
okay.
You look what Emmanuel Sanders. I knew he's getting up there in age, but you look what he did. Like last time he was in a pass-heavy offense with the Broncos, he put up major numbers. That's whenever he kind of made his name as Emmanuel Sanders. That's Emmanuel Sanders. All right, we got to respect him. So I just think with Drew Brees back there, Sean Payton's a genius. He's going to have a lot of plays drawn up for Emmanuel Sanders. And like I said, just when he's in a pass-heavy offense, he just seems to always be open and put up huge touchdowns and huge numbers.
Yeah.
But back to the whole Buccaneers thing. I think that they're going to have a great, splendid year. But I just think that they're going to rely on Gronkowski, Brait, and Howard a lot, as opposed to Godwin and Evans on the outside. I still think they're going to Evans still going to get 1,000 yards because just like Michael Thomas, he wakes up and gets 1,000 yards. You know what I'm saying? So, but I just think that
That's a solid point.
Godwin takes a half a step back, but it's more based off of the running backs and the tight ends getting used more than the wide receivers
Tom
themselves.
Brady way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
look,
exactly.
and that's well noted. That's a really good selection by
But
you.
I had him at number 6. Honestly, they would be my number 6,
Right.
possibly even 5. But
Jesus, that's so rough. So Reed, do you agree?
let's see.
No, I had them at number 5. Obviously, to me,
Reed knows what's up.
it's Chris Godwin and Mike Evans is my number 1. I had Emmanuel Sanders and Michael Thomas at number 5.
Yeah.
And that's because I don't think they want to touch the balls Drew Brees throws to them. I'm just kidding. No, but I think that they're just both so talented. Like we've always talked about, Mike Evans is just the most consistent wide receiver in the NFL. Every year, 1,000 yards. Chris Godwin is really emerging as a true superstar, and Tom Brady hasn't had weapons like this since he had Randy Moss, and that's when he blew up. That's when he played fantastic. I know he's older. You can't expect it. He's never been somebody who really throws downfield except for a year or two with Randy Moss, but he's going to try it again this year. He's going to have to. But I can totally see what I was saying, that he could easily just turn around and dump the ball off to the backside of the backfield like he did in New England. But and then his tight ends. But I just think with these two just crazy good talents at wide receiver, he's totally going to be looking to the outside, and they are hands down the most talented, for sure, duo in the NFL. And they should be the best of the year.
I think you're 100% right about that.
I know, I am. I always am.
You usually are. It's because you're tough like that. You're a thug.
I'm a bad dude.
You're the king juggalo, dude. That's what it comes down to. All right,
He's
everybody.
actually a juggalo?
Juggle King. Yeah. How much Fago do you have? I'm not a juggler.
Apparently not
I
enough.
take showers.
Not enough.
I take. I
He
take
said
showers.
he showers.
Take showers.
That's such a good line.
He's
All right,
offended the demographic of our audience. Jeez.
Yeah, they don't watch football.
All right, everybody. Well, it was a great show. I really appreciate Parker again for coming on.
Yes,
I know
thank
that
you, Parker.
even though I butchered all of the lists, I appreciate
No,
you.
dude.
I appreciate
It's
you for
okay,
coming
Mike,
on
bro.
again. It was a great show as always, and you did a phenomenal job.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
man.
man.
Appreciate
Thanks for
you
having
being
me
on.
on. Thanks for coming on Redskins Brawl. Glad to chop it up with you and both mics. Like I said, missed you guys. Hope everything's doing well. You guys know I always do listen to the Burgundy Zone podcast. You can find that Redskins Zone podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be found, guys. So just everybody, especially during times like these, just lift each other up. Be there for each other, listen, and just keep doing what you're doing, guys. Pleasure to be on.
Absolutely, Parker. It was a great episode, and I really do appreciate you coming on. Now, I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
I'm a diabetic.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Make sure you go follow the Redskins Brawl on Twitter. Go follow them on iTunes Podcasts. And then also on Spotify and Anchor. You can find them all there. And then you can go follow us, the Redskins Podcast, Burgundy Zone, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and iTunes Podcasts. And also, baby, hashtag Redskins Tweet Team. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Redskins football. Woo!
Yeah.